Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar on HR technology, how to hire smarter and train faster. So I'm Ryan and this is Jenny. Jenny is our resident HR expert, so she is joining us today. Thanks to you, our clients, we have really grown over the last few years. We've hired a lot more technical and non-technical resources. So we wanted to take some time and share with you the things we've learned. Maybe we can save you some time. So if you manage or hire or fire or train people, we hope that you'll get some benefit out of today. For example, how are we posting jobs now? Have we learned any tips?
ZipRecruiter.
Okay.
Yes, ZipRecruiter actually posts to about 50 different sites. You can boost your post to Monster and Indeed. There's one flat fee, and you can post as many job postings as you would like.
Cool. Another problem that we had is, so we start getting resumes in. Well, you got a stack of resumes. Jenny was going through 50 of them at a time and trying to sort to find the people that were qualified. Well, besides the fact it was tedious, it wasn't always accurate because people don't always post the right stuff on the resume or their application. So Jenny's got a great solution for that.
Yes, Hire Select. Hire Select is fantastic. You create your own test. People go and take your test, and then you just simply log in, see the results, and then you can filter through and only bring in your most qualified candidates. It's fantastic. So stay tuned. We're going to tell you about these little tools that we've learned and some more coming right up.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar on HR Tech, how to hire smarter and train faster. If you hire, fire, train, or manage employees, we think there'll be something on this webinar for you. So thanks for coming along. And thanks for really giving us the need to create this. Because of you, our clients, we have grown over the last few years. We've hired many new technical and non-technical resources. So we wanted to take this opportunity and kind of put together our best practices that we've learned, kind of the lessons that we've learned that have made our lives easier and helped us really improve our hiring process. So hopefully you'll think it's some good information as well. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Well, the first thing is our process. We realized that we had to create a process, kind of a roadmap we could use to really define our hiring, our firing, our testing, our reviews, and we wanted to keep it to one page. We wanted to make it simple because we knew if it was simple, we'd be much more likely to follow it. And I can say that after following this, we have really increased our success rates with our new employee hires. And so I strongly recommend doing something like this. You can download this. If you haven't already, download it now. There's a link below the video, so you can download this, print it out. You can make notes or highlight. As we go through today, we'll be referencing it several times. If you don't have an HR process, you can use this one to get you started. Maybe it'll give you a good jumping off point. So let's jump right into our org chart. You need an org chart. That's all it is to it. If you have been on the fence or if you've thought about one in the past but never created it, I strongly recommend that you go back and reconsider. An org chart does many things for your company. In the HR process, though, it really shows you what roles are lacking. What I suggest doing to start with an org chart is list all the roles that your company needs, all the jobs that your company does. Don't put people in the blocks yet. Just create the blocks. And then in each block, list exactly what the role is, in other words, the job title, and what they do. Then go back and put your people in it. What you may find is you have some people in multiple blocks, and you have some blocks without anybody in them. So it lets you know where you may need to think about hiring next, what weaknesses you may have, or what strengths you may have. So here's a sample of ours. We have our pictures in there. We also have a job description, a job title. This lets our new employees know from the day they're hired exactly what's expected of them because there are responsibilities and roles listed on the org chart. And again, make this available to everyone. This is not a top secret document. This is something that everybody in your organization needs to see and follow. It gives your employees clarification, and it's something that they need to have. Next, this is kind of bonus. It's the decision matrix. We put this together once we started hiring new employees because we found out that oftentimes new employees were most comfortable with a person or people they met during the hiring process, so they kept coming back to those HR staff members for questions down the road. So we put this together to let everybody know who's the best person to answer that question. If it's a question about time off request, who do I go to? If it's a question about a contract with a vendor, who do I go to? Who has the authority to make that decision? If all your decisions have to be handled by one person at the top, then that is going to be a very busy person, probably a very miserable person too. So by creating this decision matrix, it'll really give you the ability to scale and to grow a little bit easier, reduces stress on everybody. So now back to our job hiring here. So a job description. You need a job description. You need a clearly defined job description. This is something that you post so potential candidates know what they're getting into. What are they actually signing up for? What job do you need filled? I would recommend considering putting your pay scale on here. The worst thing that you could do is to spend a lot of time with an applicant, spend interview after interview, hour after hour, and then find out, deep into the process that y'all are in two different ballparks when it comes to pay scale. So I suggest talking about pay scale pretty early on. That way you're not wasting anybody's time, or no one's wasting your time. Here's a page from our website. We keep all our open job positions posted on our website. This is easy. It kind of lets people know what we need. It's kind of part of our engine. That's one thing that we've done here. We wanted to create a hiring engine. We want to keep it fueled. That way we're always looking for good people. As good technical candidates come to the coast, we want them to think about us, and we want to make sure we get to meet them. So again, job description and a pay scale. Second, recruiting. So what is the first step? You got your great job description. You have your pay scale defined. Well, honestly, the first thing is blast it out to your sphere of influence. Your friends, your family, your business contacts. Just send out an email and say, hey, does anyone know a good blank? I need to hire a good blank. Oftentimes that will get you all the great candidates that you need. All the potentially qualified applicants that you need could come from that sphere of influence. So consider that. But what happens if that's not enough? If you want to reach out a little bit further, we use LinkedIn and Twitter for our business, and so we always blast out open job positions to those two resources. Honestly, we haven't had as much luck with Facebook. Maybe it's because Facebook is more of a personal, person-to-person type social media, whereas especially LinkedIn is definitely more towards the business side. We seem to have more success there. But consider posting it to those two spots if you haven't. And then, of course, there's the myriad of job websites like Monster, like Indeed. There's tons of them out there. There's some that are industry specific and some that are very generic. But honestly, to answer that question, we have found ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter, for a small monthly fee, will blast job positions out to over 50 search engines specifically for job hiring. So we can type up one very nice job description, send it to ZipRecruiter. Zip will send it everywhere for it. They'll send it to Monster. They'll send it to Indeed. We really like ZipRecruiter. We strongly recommend it. Since we've started using it, we definitely have a broader reach. Some of our most recent hires have come from Indiana, Wyoming, Utah. Those are candidates we never would have talked to, we never would have found, or that wouldn't have found us if we wouldn't have been using some of these better job search engines. So we'll do a small demo of ZipRecruiter here in a few minutes, so stay tuned for that. Also, you may ask about staffing agencies. We like staffing agencies. We've had good luck with NextStaff here on the coast. So as long as you know what you're getting into, they can be a great resource. So normally the way most staffing agencies work, at least in our experience, you can hire someone through them, a temporary to permanent hire. You simply pay the staffing agency a little more than you would normally pay the candidate, and they pay the candidate for you. They handle benefits, they handle everything during the initial period. You can either hire the person up front and pay the staffing agency simply a finder's fee, or like we have done in the past, we just simply pay them for 90 days. It gives us a chance to get to know the candidate, and gets the candidate a chance to get to know us. And if at the end of that time we want to hire the person full-time, we can. So it makes life easier for us. And you can still use some of the testing engines that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. You can still use those in conjunction with a staffing agency. So we definitely have a spot in our heart for staffing agencies. So if you think they may help you, reach out to them. At least find out what they have to offer. So say that you have a great ad. You're sending it out to all these sites, and people start responding. Well, that happened here in our office, and poor Jenny, she was getting 50 resumes a day and having to screen them. So it didn't take very long to realize this process is not working. She would get 50 resumes and find out that only 2 or 3 appeared to be qualified. But even then, it was hard to guess just looking at a resume and an application, are they really qualified? Do they know what they say they know? Their resume may look good. So she would normally spend half a day going through 50 resumes to find out that only 2 looked qualified. We'd bring those 2 in for an interview and realize that really only 1 of those were qualified because one person maybe wasn't as truthful on the resume as we would have liked. So the solution that we found and that we are huge fans of is a program called Hire Select. It's a testing website. We'll go into a deeper dive here in just a few minutes. I'll give you kind of a brief description. It lets you create tests for potential job candidates. It automatically gives them that test online, and then it sends you the results. So why don't we go ahead and jump into our Hire Select demo. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about Hire Select, and also let's mention ZipRecruiter real quick. We talked about it earlier. This is the ZipRecruiter homepage. You can post your job to 50 job boards, just 1 submission. These are a few of the boards that they link to. We are big fans of Monster. In the IT industry, it works really well. Indeed is also one that works well for IT, but your industry may have different. So again, if you haven't checked them out, check out ZipRecruiter. We like ZipRecruiter. So over to Hire Select. So say you've got the right ads out and you're starting to get resumes. Well, you don't want all those resumes coming back to you because you're going to spend a lot of time filtering through. So what we do, on our job description, we actually include a link to our Hire Select test. The website is criteriacorp.com, and by posting a job here, we actually are creating a test for it, and we send applicants directly to this test. So instead of Jenny getting 50 resumes, now 50 people go to Hire Select and take a test. We have Hire Select set up to email her if people score above a certain percentile. So instead of getting 50 resumes, spending half the day filtering that down to 1 or 2, she now spends 5 minutes simply opening emails from the 2 candidates that were actually qualified. So it does the pre-qualification for us and only sends us those that are above a certain percentage successful. So let's jump in real quick. When we log in, it will show us, you can see this dashboard here, people who have applied to jobs, and we can very quickly see what they're scoring here. We have 4 or 5 tests. This is the CCAT, the CSAP, the typing test, the EPP, and a Tier 2 tech test. We'll go through those in more detail in just a few minutes. But for now, just know that these applicants have taken these tests, and this is what they've scored. You see very good typing here. Not quite so good on the tech test. For customer service, highly recommended. And for the CCAT, 81. That's not bad. Also, we can look at past candidates. We can say, well, let's use me as an example. I've taken all these. I took them before we started using it as a sample. So here is my test. Let's jump in real quick. Let's look at me with the CCAT, the CBST, and there are many tests. We'll go into those in just a minute. Basically, what you would do, you would go down here to Test Maker, and let it pull up here on our screen. We can create our own test. So for instance, we have some very specific skills we wanted our people to be able to learn and know. So we created a custom test, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of tests that we can reuse. So if we go up here to our test selection screen and go to Job Profiler, this is a very nice feature. Give it a minute to pull up. So let's say we needed someone in sales. We can just simply type in sales, and it will ask us, hey, did you mean this? So we could say a wholesale manufacturing sales rep, technical and scientific product sales rep, security and commodity sales agent. Let's just pick one of these. Let's expand that so it tells you this position is also known as these. If you choose it and then go to our job profile, it recommends tests that you should give to a person applying for a job like this. So this is a sample test battery. It tells you kind of what skills are important and at what level they need to be able to pass those skill tests. So it doesn't leave you hanging. Basically, when we started looking for technicians, we would type in, computer technician. It would recommend 4 or 5 tests. Then what we do, we simply add our technical test on top of it. So when someone wants to apply for a job here, they're going through multiple tests, as you can see here by by looking at mine. They're taking at least these 5 tests plus our technical tests that we created. So we have a candidate taking 6 tests, and they have to score above a certain score on each of those 6 tests before we even proceed with the first interview. So let's just look at some of these. And again, there are dozens of tests on here. Depending on your industry, you can get very specific with the type of test you want. These are the tests that the website recommended. So let's check those out. The CCAT, let's view that real quick. So I actually scored 38, which was in the 91st percentile when I took this. So you say, well, what is this? The criteria cognitive aptitude test. These are tests that some psychologists have developed. It tells you when I took it last. And it tells me that if I was applying for this job as a network admin, this is where I fall. This is the recommended range, and this is where I fall in the range. So it's nice. You could say, well, what if I was hiring for a bookkeeper? This is where I would fall in that range. What if I was hiring for an attorney? This is where I would fall on that range. What if I was hiring for a loan officer? This is where I would fall. So the nice thing is you can pick many different types of jobs. What if I was hiring to be a store manager? This is where I would fall there. So it tells you real quick how I scored on math and logic, verbal ability, and then spatial reasoning. So many jobs do require some of these basic skills, especially the verbal ability. You want someone that can express themselves clearly. So it gives you a nice chart showing whether or not this candidate falls in the acceptable range. So let's look. This was, again, the CCAT. Let's look at the next test, the CBST. And it's the basic skills test. There's a verbal score and a math score, and very similar. It tells you where you scored. You can pick a job title. How about a driver, where they fall there? How about a property manager? How would it fall? How about a security guard? Where would it fall? So just depending on the job you're looking for, it gives you a nice, a quick summary of whether this person scored in the acceptable range. Let's go down to the next test, the CPI. And this is the personality inventory test. You know what? This is nice. We've actually had our entire office go back and take this test. It kind of lets us know how to better communicate with each other. We can see each other's strengths and weaknesses, so we know how to be a stronger team. And it may surprise you on some things. It kind of did in mine. It gave me a snapshot of myself, skeptical and objective in evaluating others, laid back but also a little spontaneous, deliberate and low-keyed. Yeah, I never would have guessed that. So it's kind of nice. You have these graphs on the agreeableness chart. I thought I was much more agreeable than that, but apparently not. On the conscientiousness, you see where I scored. Openness, extrovert. Yeah, I could have guessed that one. Stability. So some of these it may actually surprise you, but overall, after having our entire office take these, they're pretty accurate. And then it goes into a description on what each of these means. So the agreeableness scale measures their tendencies with respect to social harmony and getting along with others, and it tells you what someone with low scores may be good or bad at. Somebody with high scores, what they may be good or bad. Again, there's no right or wrong score. There just may be right or wrong jobs. For instance, with my extroversion scale up here being so low, it tells me I'm an introvert and I'm well suited for a wide variety of jobs. And it mentions them: programmers, data analysts, writers. But there's also some jobs that maybe I'm not suited so well for, like outside sales. So it would give you a good quick understanding of, will this person most likely be a good fit for the job I've got. It even gives you some interview guides. So if I was interviewing myself, this is the type of interview questions I should ask. Some sample interview questions. How would I handle a situation in which I didn't get along with a coworker and with whom I had to work closely? So it gives you some good guidelines there on questions you should ask. So going into the first interview, you would already know a lot about that candidate, and you would know exactly what type of questions to ask them to learn more about them. So again, this is the CPI. Also the MRAB. I'll tell you, this test was ridiculously hard. It's a memory test, and again, it's kind of one of these that all jobs don't need tests like this. If you do, it's very interesting. So if you ever start using Hire Select, I recommend that you take the MRAB. It's a very entertaining test. It measures things like attention and memory and reasoning. These are some of the items that it tests on. So again, very, very interesting test. This is a theory that I've been working on too. The MRAB, okay, it's a difficult test. It's kind of a long test. So my first thought was maybe I shouldn't include that on my Hire Select test battery, but I wanted people to apply for this job that were serious about working for AGJ. I don't want tire kickers out there. And I'll tell you, when you sign up for our test and it tells you that you've got a test for the next 75 minutes and you get to the MRAB, which is an incredibly difficult test, it will separate those that are serious from those who aren't. So that's one theory that I think works. If you get a lot of tire kickers and people that may not be serious about your job, or people that you think may not be serious, giving them a test battery like this, it really helps separate those that are serious from those that aren't. The nice thing about Hire Select, you can actually see who starts taking tests and if they stop, or if they, in other words, if they cancel the test before they're done. And we've seen quite a few people stop at the MRAB. So it really does, it helps us filter out those that are serious from those who aren't. Of course, you can always deselect it and turn it off, so not a big deal there. And then typing, you can see my typing's not as strong as it used to be. I need to brush up on that a little bit. So I can download all these reports. I can actually compare myself to other candidates. Let's do a quick candidate comparison. Let's just do one for a whole position. Let's just say the network admin test. Let's just say show us all the results there. So you can see these are some people who've recently taken it. Let's go back and do another one here. Let's pick our system admin network test without require. Oh, and by the way, you can require an application and a resume. So that's one thing we've done. The first step in our test is to enter your application and upload your resume. Most people already have their resume typed up in a Word document, so they can simply upload it. So it puts all those in one place. You don't have to remember, did so-and-so email that to me. Also, if someone calls out of the blue asking if we're hiring, we can simply send them this link. So this testing link is good all the time. We can post it in job ads. We can email it directly to people. And then when they reply, they really aren't replying. They're just simply taking our test, and it's telling us if they scored higher than a certain amount. We have a nice little email that it sends when they finish our test, letting them know that we'll be reviewing it, and if we have an opening and they qualify, we'll be getting in touch to follow up with an interview. So this lets you compare real quick. You see that everybody that took the test was qualified. Now, of course, these are the people that finished. Like I mentioned, surprisingly enough, a lot of people cancel out of the test when they hit the MRAB or when they hit our AGJ Tier 2 test. So once they get to some of the more difficult tests, it really does separate the serious from the not so serious. So you can see real quick here, candidate scores. So very nice feature. You can look at archives, in other words, people who've taken the test in the past. Look at your test portfolio. Again, the test maker allows you to create your own custom test. So it's, again, a very nice feature. So we really like Hire Select. It has helped us tremendously. Our time spent on reviewing resumes and deciding who to bring in for an interview has been greatly reduced. So if for no other reason than to save time, we strongly recommend Hire Select, no matter what type of job you're hiring for. And if you decide to use a staffing agency, like we do in some cases, you can simply send them the link. They'll do their own pre-screening, and then they can have applicants fill out this same link. So using a site like this doesn't exclude you from using a staffing agency if that's what you want to do. So that's our demo on Hire Select and ZipRecruiter. Now let's get back to our HR process. Okay, so you have finished your org chart, you've got a great job description, you've been recruiting, you've had some great applicants take your test on Hire Select, and now it's time to actually start interviewing. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Let's get serious about interviewing here. One of the things that we've done, which has greatly helped us, is increase the number of interviews. We used to do 1 or 2 interviews, and our success rate wasn't what we would like. So we have increased the number of interviews. We have an initial interview that is generally in our business, we do an initial interview that's not technical. We hire for 2 reasons. Number one, the person needs to be technically fit. Well, if they've taken our Hire Select test, then we know we filtered out those that aren't technically competent in our desired job. So we assume that they have been able to pass that test and that they've scored a certain number of questions right. So we jump right into the most important thing, core values. That's one thing that we strongly use during our hiring process. So if your company hasn't defined what your core values are, do it. We hire, fire, reward. We do everything in our office based on core values. You'll notice our HR process says GWC. That stands for get it, want it, capacity to do it. And that goes back to some of the tech stuff. So normally we'll have 2 non-technical people perform the first interview. They're really checking to see how the person works out when it comes to values. Do they match our company values? We obviously assume some amount of technical competency. And then also check social media. Don't exclude a resource like this. Use it. Check Facebook. We have actually not interviewed or not hired people based on a Facebook profile or a LinkedIn profile. So use the resources out there. If people are going to post things on it, then by all means take advantage of it. So you may find that we've actually hired some people because we have realized, yes, they're a great fit, and based on their social media, they exactly match up with the kind of person we want working with us here at AGJ. Again, remember, the people in your office, you probably spend more time with them than you do with your spouses and your kids. So you want to make sure you have an office full of people you like. You got to work with these folks, make sure you enjoy being around them. So that's one reason we focus so heavily on values. So our second interview, that's where we start getting more technical. We'll have somebody technical go to that interview. Sometimes it will be a lunch interview. Sometimes it may not be, but that's where we start asking specific technical questions about their background, about their history, to make sure that they really can do what they say they can do. We don't necessarily have to test them on paper anymore because they've already done that during Hire Select. But we just want to make sure everything's above board and that we got the right vibe from them. So the third interview, again, we're back to really focusing on core values. We'll try to do a longer interview, maybe come in at lunch and then take a longer lunch. What we found is that after someone's in our office for a few hours, they're really relaxing. You're getting to know the real person. They're getting to know the real you. We don't want any surprises here. We want to make sure we're hiring them for who they are, and we want to make sure they're coming to work for us and liking us for who we really are. So take plenty of time. The rule is always hire slow and fire fast. If you think the person is right, move them to the next interview. Don't make any decisions based off one interview. Goodness gracious. Check the references. Do all your due diligence there. And then if this is a big hire, consider doing a lunch or supper with the candidate plus their spouse. So again, if it's something that serious, if it's a big job you're hiring for, which in our business, every job's a big job. We don't always take their spouse out to dinner, but in some cases, it can be very beneficial. So say they've made it through the interview process, you like what you see, what's next? Well, you need to send them an offer letter. Again, if your attorney hasn't drafted one of those for you, get them to draft an offer letter for you. And again, throughout this process, we are not attorneys, so make sure you consult your attorney or HR professional about any new process before you start it. I feel like that's my legal disclaimer I need to get out of the way. So send them that offer letter. Make sure it defines their roles one more time, which you can just copy that from the job description, remember, so that you're not reinventing the wheel. And we generally in our offer letter include things like the pay scale, holidays, exactly pay dates when they get paid, any other additional items like reimbursements, a holiday schedule, bonuses, anything like that, any kind of requirements from them based on billability. We include that in our offer letter so there's no surprises once they accept. If possible, in your business, find out if an on-the-job trial would come in handy. In some cases, we'll do that. We'll bring someone in, let them work for a day or two alongside of us to make sure they know what they're getting into and we know what we're getting into. So some jobs lend themselves well to that, some do not. And then finally, it's time to make a decision, so pull the trigger there. And we generally write into our offer letter the 90-day probationary period. I think most states understand that and follow some type of similar trial period. We have one. And during that time, we have a 30, 60, 90-day checklist. We have a process that we follow from before we hire someone up through their first 90 days. As far as giving them feedback, we want to make sure we're giving them constant and consistent feedback. So then once they accept, what's next? Well, we start onboarding. We do all the normal drug screen, background checks, credit checks. Also, E-Verify. E-Verify is the law, so make sure you're doing E-Verify now. We have an HR policy review. We have an employee manual we want them to check out. And I'll tell you, all the rage now is doing videos. So onboarding your employees with videos. I know we have an employee manual. I hope everyone has read it, but it wouldn't surprise me if some people haven't. So what we've done, we've started supplementing that. The key points in our employee manual, we made videos out of them. For example, here's one we've done on culture. So here's a brief video on our company culture. You'll see Bud and I.
Hey everybody, this is Ryan and Bud here with AGJ.
So this is just another opportunity for us to get in front of our new hires or our existing hires if they haven't watched it in a while. Just really define what our company culture is. We do other parts of our onboarding through that as well. So again, use videos. It's a great way to keep new employees involved. You know, these days everybody's used to watching videos on their phones, on their computers, on their laptops. So it's a medium that they're already familiar with, so take advantage of it. We have some software that we use here in our office, so we obviously go through and set up new employees on any important business software lines of business. Benefits review and completing forms there. That's obvious. Job training, of course, we start right off the bat with job training. And then CEO orientation, we want to spend a few minutes with them, just really introducing them. Once again, reminding them of our values and our company ideology. Make sure we introduce them to other employees. We make sure that we document their birthday and their hire dates. That's something we want to make sure we celebrate in the future. And then quarterly conversations, we make sure we let everybody know at least once a quarter how we're doing, how they're doing. We don't want them to ever get a disciplinary notice that surprises them. So what we've started doing is quarterly conversations. It's really like a mini review, a mini employee review. We talk about what's working, what's not. We spend 15 minutes doing this, review a questionnaire with them, and then find out, hey, how are you doing? We try to set a quarterly goal for each employee. How did they do towards that goal? We give them a chance to talk to us. We have a little exercise called Stop, Start, Continue. It's a great way to ask them, hey, what do you think as a company we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What do we need to continue doing? It gives us a chance to talk to them. Hey, this is what we think you need to stop doing, start doing, or continue doing. It's a great time just to be honest and let everybody know exactly where they stand and if there's an area they need to improve on, or if there's an area to do a great job, give them a good attaboy. And then yearly, we take that quarterly conversation, and once a year, we make it a little bit more involved. This is where we generally talk about a bonus or a raise if there's one applicable. It's kind of a more formal quarterly review, and we do these once a year here at our office. Again, do them on whatever cycle seems wise to you, but we generally suggest at least once a year. And then unfortunately, there may come a time where you have to fire someone, so we have a little process here for termination. We use a 3-strike system in our office. But again, this should not come as a surprise to anybody. If you're having your quarterly conversations, then people should know where they stand with you at all times. So there's a little brief note on termination. And then finally, in final thoughts here, if you're in a competitive field, don't let your hiring engine stop. That's one thing. When we started creating our HR process, we really wanted it to be an HR engine. We wanted to constantly be getting a stream of good qualified candidates. Even if we don't need someone right now, we want to find the best candidates out there. So once you go through the process of getting your ZipRecruiter, getting your HireSlate, get all this set up and running, use it. Don't stop it and start it. Just let it go. Keep interviewing, keep testing. And again, much of this is automated, so it's not a lot of work on your part as long as you get it set up right the first time. And then a note on training. A long time ago, we had this kind of internal philosophical debate on training. And some businesses say, well, if I spend a lot of money training my employees, they'll just go to work for the competition. To those companies that say that, I would reply with, so you'd rather just have an office full of untrained staff? So that's one thing we started doing in our office. We've said, training is important. Everybody at AGJ should be the best at what they do. So yes, we have to spend a little bit of time, a little bit more money on training. Yes, there's always the chance that someone could leave and could go somewhere else. but that's the cost of doing business, and by making AGJ the very best place to work possible, we believe that will generally not happen as much as it would otherwise. So again, here's some notes today on HR. We thank you for joining us. Hopefully this has been beneficial and helpful to you. If you have any questions, shoot them over to us. We'll be happy to answer them. And again, as a final disclaimer, we are not attorneys, so before you start any new process, talk to an HR professional or your attorney if you have any questions that are legal in nature. Again, thanks for joining today's webinar, and we will see you next time.